Hello and welcome to the post-match reaction to the Highlanders versus the Hurricanes, brought to you by DrivingMaul. Hi, I'm Paul, the guy behind DrivingMaul, your best place for rugby opinion and predictions. So, the Highlanders won this one 30-14. A bit of a surprise, really. I think quite a few of us had predicted the Hurricanes would be up in this one. They have been proving themselves to be one of the top teams in this competition, but tonight the Highlanders had far too much for them. I guess we got a bit of that feel very much early on, where the Highlanders decided to go through the phases before kicking the ball back. They were looking at playing a lot more rugby tonight than perhaps we've seen them play on other occasions, where they've actually looked for broken field play a lot more. Tonight they were happy to go through the phases and to test out the Hurricanes. And we can see that by the amount of possession and territory they had. 65% possession at 68% territory for the game, which meant that they got through about 140 runs compared to 87 by the Hurricanes. So yes, a lot of work going on there. 30-14 was the final result, and let's be honest, Limasopwanga's early kicking wasn't very good. I did wonder if that was going to cost or be the Highlanders later on in the game, but that wasn't to be the case because they were so dominant in this one. Early on, both sides were trying to throw pretty long passes to try and mix things up and find space, and this first half was a very tight half. Basically, the Highlanders had a whole bunch of possession, and the Hurricanes were tackling very well. They were like 90-91% successful with their tackling in that first half. Interestingly enough, the Highlanders decided to take 3 points early on to get the scoreboard ticking over, and I thought we'd see more of that during the game. But when the Hurricanes went down got into the Highlanders' half, they had several opportunities to kick three, and every time either took the line out or took the scrum. And tonight, the Hurricanes line out really did fall to pieces. 7 out of 12 they won, only 58% of their line outs. It says that the Highlanders won 10 out of 10, but I remember at least Hurricanes stealing one, so that can't be quite right. But the Highlanders line out tonight was very good at disrupting it, and particularly Franklin, who got up quite a few times to get his hand in the way. And it's not just him, it's obviously his lifters as well. The Highlanders line-out was impressive tonight. Eventually, though, Geordie did go over off the back of a scrum after Naholo came in and made some ground. So they did eventually get over and take the lead about halfway through that first half, so around about 22 minutes. Just after that, Ben Smith went up for a ball, landed badly, banged his head on the floor, and got up fine, but it did look like a bit of a bang. He has got a history of concussions, and he should have gone off for a HIA. There's no two ways about it. The doctor came on and said, no, we'll look at it from the sideline. No, if the referee's asking, then just send him off, get him checked out, and get him to come back on again if he's okay. He didn't show any adverse effects in particular after that. But still, he should have gone off and got checked. There's, in my opinion, and not just my one, on social media as well. I saw other people saying that basically that was a bad mistake by the officials. Then, talking of bad mistakes by the officials, Geordie then intercepts the ball, runs in underneath under the post after looking like he had been laid out and was having his leg looked at, but it gets called back because of a high tackle by the Highlanders against the Hurricanes. Well, surely then it's advantage. But there's talk of Julian Severe clearly throwing a punch, but the camera pans away just to see before we see where it actually lands. I think Julian Severe got away very lucky with that one. And if there's any footage, I've got a funny feeling he'll be getting cited afterwards. The intent was clearly there. Whether he actually connects or not, who knows? Because the camera panned away. But either way, he was lucky that, as someone pointed out on Twitter, the law is of abusing either physically or verbally your opponent. not attempting to abuse them. So if you attempt to abuse and you miss, if you physically abuse an opponent and you miss, then that's not actually necessarily breaking the laws of the game. He got very lucky that the camera panned away and we missed quite where his punch landed. But if the referee is going to disallow that try, it has to be surely a penalty to the Highlanders. It can't be a penalty to the Hurricanes because he should play advantage and give the try. So interesting there that the referee was signing his own laws on the game this evening. Even though they were down a man, the Highlanders finished off the half better than the Hurricanes, and after 44 minutes and multiple phases, the quick tap and go by PJ Perenara, wonderful inside ball by a forward, I can't remember which one it was now, and Lee touched it down very quickly. That meant with Liam Sopwanga missing both his conversions in that first half, it was a 1-point lead, 8-7 at half-time to the Highlanders. And yeah, as I say, it could easily have been a 12-7 lead, but no, so it was only an 8-7 lead. We then had another incident where it's questionable as to what are the laws of the game. Riccatelli clearly cuts out the pass running up, knocks the ball on deliberately, and penalty is given away, but apparently not a yellow card because there was no overlap. Now where's this overlap business come from about whether it should be a yellow card or not? You're either giving yellow cards for deliberate knock-ons for cynical play, or you're not. And that one seemed, again, another interesting interpretation of the laws by the referee on the pitch. So the Hurricanes got away with a couple there. After that, there was a bit of a kick by the. There was a clearing kick that got fielded inside. It's to Ben Smith, who breaks the line wonderfully and goes through and puts Aaron Smith under. And one of the points that was made at half time by the Highlanders coaches was that the team that had the field position were the team that was scoring points. And so their game in that second half was going to be all about getting in the right field position, maintaining that pressure, and then obviously reap the rewards of doing that. And we saw that again in the second half. Whereas though in the first half, Hurricanes had their tackling at about 90%, it came down to 84% overall, which shows you that the tackling in the second half was below 80%, and the Highlanders took full advantage of that. They made only I think it was like 1 or 2 clean breaks in the first half. They ended up with 6 in total, and that's where the Highlanders got that piece. They got caught napping soon after that with a quick line out. Namel Lascudder was running with the ball, took out 3 players. Now not known for his power running, but clearly he drew in 3 defenders to tackle him, released the ball, and eventually one of the forwards crashed over. But in this game, the Hurricanes really didn't have much attacking structure. They were overrunning the ball. Passes weren't going to hand, and they turned the ball over 18 times. If we look at their stats, 89 passes for 87 runs, it shows you they didn't really use much of that width that we kind of expect them to do. So, yeah, here was a team that ended up being stuck in their own half, couldn't play out of it, couldn't kick out of it, and basically ended up giving up points. And even when they did get penalties to clear their lines, I say with only winning 7 out of 12 of their line-outs, they also would turn over the ball there as well. So this was not a good evening for the Hurricanes, but they were still leading until the hour mark, when they were what the words I'm looking for anyway. Anyway, they caused their own issues. A forward pass by the Hurricanes in their own 22 gave the Highlanders a scrum, and from that, the Highlanders went over for a try. Interestingly, before that, the Highlanders had a kickable penalty, which would have put them back in the league, because they're only 1 point behind at 13-14 at that stage. But they decided to go for the corner. The line out the maul got stopped, and then they turned over the ball. So that was that was a poor choice by the Highlanders. I think at that point, if you're 1 point behind, kick the points, get the lead back, and then you can go and also get the kick to put your opposition back under pressure, territory pressure again, is what I think they should have done, but they didn't. As I say, they got a bit lucky that the Canes became agents of their own destruction with that pass. Then a lovely move by the Highlanders, one we've seen a bit this year, actually, where you've got a line out, you bring the ball into midfield, that pulls all the defenders over, and then you swing back to the side where the line out is, and put it back against the forward, which is in this one they used the forward's hands, gave Naholo enough space to run down the sideline, outpace TJ Perenara, and go in the corner. That put them 27-14 up. Another penalty in front made it a 3-point game, and with 9 minutes to go, 3-score game at 30-14, and that basically won it. And from there on in, the Highlanders kept pushing, but they couldn't actually get over the whitewash for another try. The Hurricanes tried playing out a couple of times in that, but again, their lack of structure and they had various other problems just meant they couldn't, and the Lions couldn't actually string enough moves together to get to get over the line. Bas Pundit says, how bad was TJ Perenara tonight? I'm not sure it was just TJ Perenara. I think the whole of the Hurricanes backline didn't have much structure tonight, and they were overrunning the ball. I wouldn't put it all down at his feet. The Highlanders, a decent night, but they only made 79% of their tackles. Well, they weren't great tackling, but they only had to make half as many as the Hurricanes, and they won this game with possession, which is perhaps not the style of rugby that we'd always expect from the Highlanders. But clearly, they realise that if you starve the Hurricanes off ball, they're going to struggle, and they managed to keep possession pretty well. Sure, they made 13 turnovers, but that was not as many as the Hurricanes with their 18, and that was basically enough. Looking at some of the players on the attacking front, obviously we've talked about that break by Naholo down the sideline. He was also instrumental just before half time with another break, and that's why we can see that he racked up 100 metres with the ball in hand, making him the highest run metre maker in the game. That wasn't all just running kicks back. That was more about making those spaces and making those breaks. Hence, those 2 clean breaks were part of that. Ben Smith with one clean break, obviously for the I think it was the opening try by the opening try in the second half by the Highlanders again, and that's where he racked up his 70 metres with that. Amongst the forwards, Franklin got through. Hempo and Franklin both got through a chunk of work, as did Whitelock with their carries, and on the other side of the ball, Artie Surveyor was as usual very active. Defending wise, and I think this is where we're going to see quite a lot from the Hurricanes, because they did put in a big shift, especially in that first half. Tuanga Allen, 11 tackles, Nolan missed. Fatialofa also put in 11 tackles. And Artie Surveyor, 17 tackles. Not only was he big on attack, Artie was big on defence as well. On the other side of it, Luke Whitelock, again, another big showing with 10 tackles as well. And Hemopo also with quite a few. And we talked about Franklin and his work at the line-out. Those are the guys who really stood out in this game. In the backs, obviously, we talk about Naholo and Ben Smith. Sopwanga, a bit of a mixed day with the boot, and on the other side of it, Bowden Brown, pretty quiet, didn't really get the space and time to show his pace and his skills. We saw Geordie Barrett rushing up in defence a lot and disrupting that Highlanders line in that first half. Pace clearly knocked off in that second half as people got tired, and that's why we saw I think the Highlanders make more in that second half. Barca Pundit, what about Highlanders lineouts? Never seen them that bad, their lineouts. Yep, they had an absolute shocker tonight with their lineouts. Previously we've seen Riccatelli throwing perhaps not straight and missing his man. That wasn't so much the point that tonight. Tonight it was that the Highlanders were getting up, and they know I think the Highlanders spotted that Riccatelli can be a bit fragile at lineouts. And I thought, let's put pressure on him and let's see how he copes. And they were getting up well, and so blocking a lot of his throws. Perhaps they were trying to keep things simple for him, because they say he hasn't been great. And as the chief says, Canes have shocking lineouts this year. They haven't been great. That is very true. So there we go. That's how I saw the game, and unfortunately that means my picks have started on a bad note this weekend. I'll be back tomorrow. First off with Major League Rugby at about 3 o'clock. And then also, and if you want to know where you can catch Major League Rugby, they are streaming those games live on Facebook for people outside of the USA. And then I'll be back again tomorrow evening for the Chiefs versus the Crusaders, so live straight after that game. So join me for both of those, and enjoy whatever rugby you're watching this weekend.